Hey guys, sorry about the issues there. Well, my phone is saying rotate device. Can you guys see me? I'm not sure if I can see. I'm not seeing anything on the. Not a good start. The phone is saying rotate the device. I don't know if there's a delay or what's going on. Can you guys see me? Okay. I'm sideways. I see what you mean. Looks like I'm going to have to hold the phone like this the whole day, the whole night. Same thing happened the last time. This doesn't offer the option to not hold it this way. Anyway, here we go. Okay, so hey guys, sorry about the bad start. This is kind of why I don't look forward to lives. Something seems to go wrong every time, and yeah, just something I don't really look forward to. Anyway, let me focus on you guys. Janae Ann, hello to you in South Carolina. Hi Linda, hi Susie, hi Ilona, Texas, okay. Maggie and Kath Hargrave from Coachella Valley, California. Did I say that right? Christopher from Idaho, Pink Ming Studio, hi there. Stephanie, hello. Scarlett, good to see you. Lisa, good to see you. Maggie, Victoria, okay. Firefly, thanks so much for doing this again. Mona Lisa, hi from the Netherlands. Anne King, Debbie McClellan, Heather Rabe from Virginia Beach, Virginia, okay. Amelia Spaz, okay. I wonder if I turn the phone another way whether it'll... Is that better? Now it's again saying to me, rotate device. Rotate device. And it sort of says locked. So I don't know. I don't know how to get out of this situation. Okay, so half rata. Thank you. So let me kind of get going with some of the questions that I've got here. I'll deal with some of your questions in the live chat. I'll try and maybe alternate them. The first question that sort of came up was, why did Shanann marry a man lacking in depth and substance? What do you guys think about that? Just do what you're comfortable with. I'm not really comfortable with this, but I don't know. What can you do? Okay, so did you guys get that? Why did Shanann marry a man lacking in depth and substance? What do you guys think? Well, first of all, does Chris Watts lack depth and substance? I think given what has happened, given that he's committed this crime, I think one could say yes, right? You know, if he was a man of substance, he wouldn't have committed the crime. He wouldn't have had an affair, all that kind of thing. On the other hand, Shanann loved him till the end, so maybe they were of a similar depth and substance in terms of their marriage. I mean, they were, according to her, happily married, right? I think the other way of looking at it is that she did marry a man lacking in depth and substance. Maybe some of that had to do with her first marriage. Not that she was looking for a guy lacking in depth and substance, but she was looking for a guy who perhaps wouldn't give her as hard a time as her first husband. You know, that things wouldn't be as rigid or difficult or whatever it was. And thanks, guys. Thanks, Debbie. Thank you, Ruth. So, yeah, I mean, the other side of it is Shanann, I think, was someone who wanted to do things her own way. Thanks, Net S. Thanks a lot. Shanann wanted to do things her own way. So, you know, like she kind of wanted to wear the pants. And so maybe she wanted a man who, I wouldn't say she was looking for a man lacking in depth. I think she was looking for a man who would be kind to her and who would defer to her, who would sort of let her have her way. So I think that's kind of what was sort of going on. What do you guys think? Half-Righter says he loved bombed her when she needed it. I don't know if you want to say love bomb, but he certainly gave her a lot of love and sacrifice and care and kindness throughout their marriage. I know people don't want to hear good things about Chris Watts, but you know, his own mother-in-law said that he was the best thing God sent him to her, and Shanann said as recently as 2018, you know, he's the best thing that ever happened to me. So isn't love bombing kind of a short period of doing that? I kind of get the sense that he was doing a lot for her in terms of the chores and so on. Well, it sounds like I'm Chris Watts' biggest fan. I'm certainly not. I'm just trying to be fair to sort of what happened. Victoria Petrovich Hola, is that hello? Or is Hola part of your surname? Thank you very much. As long as he did what she wanted, someone's talking about narcissistic personality behavior. Elizabeth Jones, hi to you in Scotland. As you can see, it's quite warm here. I'm wearing a t-shirt, I'm wearing shorts. It's nighttime here, the sun's just gone down. Lisa says, I think Chris was probably used to being submissive. I think he was. I think that's a very good point, that is his personality. That is, he is someone who is reserved, who's go with the flow, which I think, you know, gets that from his father. He was someone who, you could say the strong silent type or the weak silent type, depending on your point of view. Oh, Hola is your surname, Victoria. Okay. Yeah, does sound great as hello too. Okay. Anyway, thank you. Zoe, he was a pleaser. Absolutely. He would try to say the appropriate thing, do the appropriate thing. And I think when someone does that and is like that, they kind of lose their identity, or they don't know what their identity is, or they have a weak sense of identity. Of course, anyone's identity, anyone, when your identity is under threat, then you tend to know what your identity is. In other words, when you can't have something you want, then you tend to know who you are. Isn't that right? Stacy says, big hug to all, trying to set up a new home, running late. Good to have you here, Stacy. Catherine, hello from Cape Town. Good to hear you, Catherine. I'm sorry, good to see you. I was just reading what you're saying about listening to you. Billy, no mates. Does anyone think Chris is suffering from PTSD? Yeah, I don't think that's what he is suffering from. I think he was suffering from something like sexual addiction, infatuation, all that kind of thing. Snorky Lou, she was very expensive. She was very expressive in her reactions, and I think he needed someone like her. Yeah, so I do think Chris Watts is looking for someone to take charge in a certain way in terms of social relationships, but I don't know whether he would have wanted someone to take charge to the extent that Shanann eventually did take charge. I see True Psych Ward is here. Firefly says, I think he gave himself PTSD. Yeah, well said. Okay, so that's one of the questions. Another question that I saw that's kind of interesting is someone said, it was, I think, the very first question on the previous sort of link. Someone said, how did he get the children into those hatches? And I think that is actually a very good question even today. No one believed he could, even when it was sort of pending, even when it was sort of a situation like, are they in the hatches? The agents didn't believe it was possible. Even when I don't know if you remember Ashley Banfield, she actually went on television and kind of spoke to an expert, and they kind of decided that the children couldn't have been in the oil tanks. And that's one of the F's of this case, is just that it didn't seem possible. Even now that we know everything, we know the measurements, it still doesn't seem possible. And anyway, the answer to how did he get them in the tanks was through mechanical pressure, through forcing them through stomping on them, through pushing them through, As Stephanie says, not easily. Okay, coat of many colors. Yeah, she says, not what I envisioned. I think, and this is being a little bit self-indulgent, I guess, but if you had an impression of me based on my voice, and then when you see me, I'm totally different, that just shows you how we can have a perception about true crime events, true crime characters, true crime scenarios, and based on whatever, based on seeing something or not seeing something, based on hearing something and not seeing something, whatever it is, you can be biased or one way or the other. You might have an impression, but that's all it is. An impression is something without all the information that is giving you a sense of reality, but that's not reality. False sense of perception. Tammy says you look exactly how I visioned you. Really? Okay. I don't know why it's such a big mystery, because my photo's on my book bio, and anyway, so I don't know. Elizabeth says, okay. Anyway, I don't want to make this all about me though. So let's just sort of go further through the questions that I've sort of assembled and accumulated. Just to go back to, why did Shanann marry a man lacking in depth and substance? I think it's fair to say that Shanann was insecure. I mean, that is brought up in the Netflix documentary, that she was insecure before, at school, before she married Leonard King. I think she was insecure before she married Chris Watts. You could even say when she married Chris Watts. There may have been, and I don't think you can get away from this, there may have been a superficial attraction. So in other words, Chris Watts was attracted to Shanann because she was an attractive woman. She was, good looking, attractive. So was he. And one of the reasons I think that the Watts case is as popular as it is the people in this case are quite good looking. The people at the center of this case, Chris Watts and Shanann, are kind of a good looking couple. And I think that they superficially suit one another. They look like they suit one another. But having said that, don't Kessinger and Chris Watts also suit one another? Don't they also look like in a different universe they could have gotten along quite well? They could have lived happily ever after if they did things the right way. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying I think maybe they were both interested in the superficial side. A lot of young people are. Shanann, we know, was interested in appearances. How interested was Chris Watts in appearances? The clothing that they were wearing, branded clothing, all that kind of thing. I think Shanann's interest in appearances was different to his. I think she was quite interested in the social media side of appearances. But I think the main thing to say is why was she attracted to him is he seemed like a nice guy on the outside. And so Nicole Kessinger thought the same. We all thought the same. I think even on watching the sermon on the porch, we thought, yeah, he seems like a nice guy on the outside. But what about the rest, Hi, is it Argos from Adelaide in South Australia? How are things in Australia? Well, I must say, when I see all your names, it does make me just, think about wherever you are in the world and what is your situation wherever you are. What is going on in terms of coronavirus? What is going on in terms of your town, your region, in terms of your population? What's going on with all of that? Ang says he's an empty vessel. Someone called 4Kids Gov says hi from New Zealand. Wow, what time is it in New Zealand? Lady Zaga says we're in lockdown, back to stage 1. Okay. Kath, thank you, Jackie. Elizabeth Jones, all good in Scotland. We are tier 2, at least you're not tier 3, right? Stacey says coronavirus rampant here. Olga is in London, living life in Hawaii. Aloha from Kauai. COVID is active here. Sweden calling. Hi, Monica. Etty in London. Hi, Bria from Bordeaux. I was actually in France last year. Beautiful country. Susie from West Lothian, tier 4, West Lothian. Is that near Edinburgh? Zoe from Oklahoma. UK tier 3, Birmingham. That's from Tracy Coward. Inga Britta from the Netherlands. Okay, I remember you, Inga. Okay, so just a quote from Stephen Covey. He says, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And I think that kind of applies to true crime as well. I think we are starting to move away from the main thing in terms of the Chris Watts case. There's a lot of, thanks Half Rutter, thanks a lot. There's a lot of chatter now about what other creators are doing and all that kind of thing. When true crime kind of reaches that point, that's kind of when I'm ready to sort of step out of the equation. I'm sort of interested in talking about the true crime, not the circus around it so much. I know there are a lot of people who are interested in that peripheral thing, but I'm kind of interested in the true crime itself, and all that other stuff is like a circus, a never-ending circus that never really goes anywhere. So I feel like we're sort of reaching that point now with the Chris Watts case, although the channel that is pushing Chris Watts' defense case is, in a way, fact-checking certain things. I mean, a lot of what is coming out there is trying to present a kind of verifiable case, which is kind of interesting. Just a thought that I had about Ronnie is that somebody mentioned, also saw the question that, does Ronnie not have emotions or something? And Ronnie admitted in the interview that he'd cried twice, and both times it was like in a church situation, I think recently. The one was when I think there's a service for the children, and the other one was, I think, when he got baptized. And I don't know, I just find it interesting that those tears happened when he was in a church, not at home thinking about what had happened, not when he's talking to his son, not in the cubicle when he found out his granddaughters had died. I don't know whether he cried at the funeral. I don't know if he was at the funeral, but I'm just saying, it is interesting. We are seeing kind of this humanity with Chris Watts as well. He's found God, and what are we to make of that? So, okay, so public grief. So, grief is a weird thing with true crime, where we often hear people saying, people grieve differently. But I think we can all recognize when someone doesn't appear to grieve, or when someone doesn't appear to grieve enough consistently. And, you saw that in quite a few very high profile cases, like John Benet Ramsey. There was the sense that the family weren't showing that much grief, or they didn't seem to be grieving the way people expected them. There's just so much public relations. The same with Madeleine McCann and her parents. There seemed to be this very slick public relations, but where is the grief? And to some extent, in this case as well, where do you see people just really, a lot of us are touched. We didn't know Chris Watts before this happened. We didn't know Shanann, but we're touched by what has happened. And, it resonates to some extent in our own lives. I was actually thinking today, just the thing where he felt not listened to. I kind of go walking my dog. In fact, Timmy, I think, is a little bit irritated with me because I cut our walk short today. And I must actually get back to your questions, but I will in a second. And all the walkers, or most of the walkers that I sort of encounter, are women, and I just find when we talk, I find that they don't tend to. I don't feel that they sort of listen to what I'm saying. I don't like try and shout over them or whatever. I try and say something. If they don't listen, then I kind of once I give up. But all I'm saying is that it is not a nice feeling. And I was sort of invited recently to go and eat out with them, and I just thought, why would I want to do that when I don't really feel we have really good conversations? But all I'm getting at is that feeling of not being listened to. Listening is both ways. You say something, someone listens, someone responds, you listen, whatever. But I just wondered to what extent social media has made us bad listeners, maybe even bad talkers. And is that a factor in the Watts case? Victoria says the Van Gogh series, fantastic, thanks. That means a lot to me. Ang says you're not alone, thank you. Firefly, good to know I've got your guys' attention. I really wish I could have you guys on here, also talking. I'm not quite sure how to share the YouTube where you have someone else on. If I did lives more frequently, I wouldn't have issues every single time. Yeah, as you say, listening is a two-way street. Zoom call, I suppose that is an option. So do you record the Zoom call through YouTube? How does it actually work? Or do you record it on your phone? Stephanie, maybe that's an idea, I don't know. So Yvonne Robinson says, I feel so affected by this case, and it is possibly because these people seem to be ordinary as opposed to extraordinary in an evil way. That's a great observation, Yvonne. A big reason why the Watts case is so incredibly popular and incredibly compelling is because we've gotten to know them so well through the literally hundreds of photos, through the just the intimacy of our exposure with these people, to some extent through the social media, but also through the body cam. And that has just given us a really intimate kind of knowledge of these people, but they are also ordinary people. And I think as soon as you kind of say, well, you try and elevate Shanann into an angel and you try and demonize Chris Watts into a devil, I think you miss the point that they're just ordinary people like us. And that is the part that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge, is that ordinary people are capable of anything if pushed far enough. And we try and imagine that that's not the case, because if it is the case, that's quite terrifying, and it is terrifying. Okay, Dave says, why was Chris Watts deleting all texts to and from Ronnie, and did law enforcement disclose what they were? Dave, I don't think those were texts to Ronnie. I think that's what he said to Shanann. I think he was not even necessarily deleting his text to whoever he was sending them to, probably Kessinger. He was just moving, it was all on his secret calculator. And I think when Shanann went to look at his phone, she didn't find anything there, and then she assumed he was deleting them when it was all just hidden away. What case do you think you're going to dive into next? That's from Gillian Morrison. Good question. Probably Laurie Vallow, although having said that, I thought that I would be doing Laurie Vallow kind of in January. I thought the trial was going to be then, and now the trial, I think, has been postponed. So it's difficult to say. I was actually writing the third book in a trilogy on Casey Anthony when the Watts case happened. It was called Treachery. So I wrote Treachery 1 and 2, and then the Watts case happened. So if nothing really happens, I might just go back to finishing that. But as some of you know, the book that I've just written now, Post-Truth, my 100th book, that should be coming out in the next week or two. It'll be available on Patreon tomorrow, on the 30th, from tomorrow onwards. On the $10 tier, it's kind of an exclusive benefit to patrons, that they get early access. So you can check that out. Obviously, it's an audio book narrated by me. I've already uploaded 5 or 6 chapters, and I'll be uploading 1 chapter a day from, well, you guys will experience it as 1 chapter a day from tomorrow onwards for the next 3 weeks or so. Miss KJ says, I really wish you would do something about the Delphi murders. I can't kind of cover everything in true crime. I've got to cover what makes sense to me, what I'm interested in. I can't kind of jump around. I'm a little bit different to a lot of the other creators. I will sit on one case for quite a long time, and then when I move on, I do tend to move on. Like, it doesn't mean I will never go back. So if you've looked at my YouTube channel, I do sometimes go and look into the Amanda Knox case. I did a few episodes about her not that long ago. Sometimes Madeleine McCann, but I tend to stick to one case. Wow, Stephanie. Yes, thanks a lot for the number 100th book. I really appreciate that. Wow, $25. Thanks a lot, Stephanie. I'm really hoping you guys are going to enjoy Post-Truth. I don't know whether I've lost my writing mojo. There were times where I really felt like I was on songwriting, and there were other times where I don't know, it didn't come that easily. So I don't know. We'll have to see. Sometimes when a book is very, very hard for me to write, it's a much better book than when it feels easy for me, which is maybe quite strange. Kaylee M, I would like Natalie Holloway too. I was in her town the week that after she disappeared, and it was so sad. Just remind me, Kelly, is Natalie the girl who disappeared on that island and there was a Dutch guy that was sort of implicated? Am I thinking about the right person? And then John Benet Ramsey's father dated her mother briefly or something like that. Teresa Timmy is right here. I don't know if you can see him. He's sort of walking around. He's just left the building. As I said, Timmy's a little bit irritated with me because I cut his walk short a little bit. But he's got some chicken barbecue to look forward to, just the meat, not the rest. Okay, so I'm just going to read a comment by someone that I put down. Hopefully, I'm going to get this right. I think it's from someone called Edka. She says, I didn't get the impression she wasn't into him or didn't love him, meaning Shanann. She was beside herself and said as much in her text when Chris stopped touching her and withdrawing physical attention. This implied they had an active sex life. So I think that's another aspect to emphasize with what attracted Chris to Shanann and Shanann to Chris Watts. I think the sexual thing was probably quite good. That's the impression I get. And also, I mean, isn't that what also was a powerful driving force with Chris Watts and Nicole Kessinger? So anyway, she goes on to say, Chris had desired her and she was perplexed and very hurt when his attraction towards her suddenly stopped during and when she returned from a 6-week break in Carolina. One cannot underestimate the effect being in the passionate stage of an affair had on his brain, a dangerous time for a dangerous man because he wore a nice man mask. He seemed incapable of emotional intimacy. He was inexperienced in relationships before Shanann and inaccessible on many levels. He was cruel to Shanann before killing her, emotionally withholding. I don't know if I agree with that he was cruel to her. I think he was just trying to protect himself. I don't think he was trying to be nasty. I don't think he was trying to hurt her or I don't know if that was the case. But I think she experienced it as horrible, as cruel, and all that kind of thing. There's that saying, all's fair in love and war. And I think in the battle between the sexes, or the battle between, someone said something about Oscar Pistorius. Where were you sitting in the Oscar Pistorius case? I was trying to find you. So I attended the sentencing phase of the Oscar Pistorius trial. I think it was can't quite remember when, just sort of the middle of the year, at the time. At one point I sat next to Mark Batchelor. And then when it went to the Supreme Court, I sat on June Steenkamp's side of the courtroom as well. But I think every time I appeared in court, I was on the non-Oscar Pistorius side, if that makes sense. So usually the right-hand side, if you're looking at the judge. I don't know if that answers your question. Nurse Bev, they had sex in the pantry. Cynthia, hello. Cynthia, is that your surname? Grow. Cynthia Grow. Um, Amelia, okay. Liz Graham. Uh, Billy, I'm not quite sure what you're asking there. Um, Crystallina Bacteria. Would you visit Chris Watts in prison to interview him? I probably wouldn't. I don't think he would want to see me. Kristen Parker, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. I suppose I should give a smile. Thanks a lot. Would I visit Chris Watts in prison? No, I don't think I would. If he invited me and he said, okay, I'm ready to tell the truth, which he wouldn't do, but if he did, then I might be interested. I'm interested in the truth. I'm interested in authenticity. So, and criminals are where they are because they're not. They are interested in minimizing whatever it is. Liz Graham, thanks a lot for your £5. Thanks for the compliment about my channel. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Liz. Linda Rabbit, having a flashback to an old TV show where one woman always clipped. Not sure what that's about. Send him your book. So, Husky Ralph, that's quite an interesting point. I know from the Henry Van Breda case, which is a triple X murder case where this youngster of about 20 years old hacked to death his family, his parents, his brother, his older brother, with an axe. So if you think the Chris Watts case is horrendous, this is kind of an order of magnitude worse than that, because it's not just murder, it is, with an axe again and again and again, lots of blood, all that kind of thing. Pretty grotesque. And anyway, his girlfriend actually contacted me and said that they were reading the books that I was writing. And to be honest, I found it quite frightening. I kind of got the sense that it may have changed his behavior somewhat, knowing what people were thinking and knowing how he was being analyzed and all that kind of thing. So that gave me kind of an unsettling feeling. Okay. So let me just go through this question again. Okay, I think I'm going to have to move on to the next one just because it goes on for a long time. So this is from Corin Elizabeth. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If Chris had killed Nicole instead of Shanann, they'd be saying she deserved it. And then she says, it's not about victim blaming. Thank you, Deborah. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. I don't know, do you guys agree with that? That if Chris had killed Nicole, they would have said she deserved it, and so it's not about victim blaming. Tammy Wells says, I've had a theory. Cindy, Nick, do you think NK helped to kill Shanann? No. What's your view on those spirit boxes? I'm not sure what that even means. Q, okay, something about the pinging. Someone called Mo Bean says, I don't agree with that opinion. something that Nicole did say was something like, or somebody said something like, if Chris Watts got away with his crime, he would have killed Nicole eventually. I just don't think so. I don't believe that. It is possible that if something kind of happened where he completely got away with the crime and Nicole somehow found out about it and then they were going to break up, then I think it's possible. It's difficult to say, I guess. Corinne Lorenz, she wrote, "We have lost our connection to nature and see it as an object separate from us that we can exploit. The corporate rape of our earth, a living organism, is causing the poisoning of our air, water, and soil. The factory farming and abuse of animals is the cause of the many viruses that cause pandemics like swine flu and COVID-19. From the wet markets in China, we live in an economic system that commodifies people as well as our natural resources. We need to reconnect back to the earth and our spirituality, because if we kill our mother, we kill ourselves." I think that is really well put in such a great sort of broad way. We have become disconnected from nature because of our connections to each other through social media. I mean, it's great that we can connect this way, but we have become very disconnected from the living world. Today, there's a sparrow that's built a nest in a tree right outside my balcony window, and so the nest is about 2 meters from me when I'm leaning over the balcony. And today, when I went into the bedroom, there was a little voice calling in there. There's just this sparrow kind of twittering or whatever. And I couldn't see it in the beginning, and eventually I did. And then obviously I had to get Timmy out the room because he would have tried to eat it or catch it or whatever. And then, Tammy, you're welcome to tell your theory. Anyway, and then I actually got my hands on the sparrow, and it was like this, just felt like feathers. It was so light. And I was going to like catch it and then, let it out the window, and it kind of found its own energy, and next thing it just burst through the window. But just in that moment, you have that sense of the visceral life of this tiny little creature. And, when last have you held a wild bird in your hand, or a fish or something like that, or an insect? Do you think Chris Watts stored the girls' bodies in the freezer? I agree with you that they were killed at the house. That's from Paul T. I'm not sure, Paul. I think that it's possible. That would certainly explain the lack of cadaver traces. Now, one of my earlier theories was that the children were killed before Shanann arrived home. And so using the fridge would have made that possible. In other words, using the refrigerator would have meant that cadaver odor wouldn't have formed, or it would have held it in place to some extent. So that is a possibility. The fact that he took a photo of the freezer sensor or the refrigerator sensor shows where he was. Now, one thing that I hadn't considered is, could it have been the refrigerator in the kitchen? I don't think it was, but if it was, then that changes things slightly. Another reason why you wouldn't have cadaver odor of the children is if they hadn't died in the house, or if one of them had died kind of at the last moment, if I can put it that way. I was surprised that the cadaver dogs weren't more effective and not I don't know. It's difficult to say because of the handling of the cadaver dogs, and just it's difficult to say what is going on with the cadaver dogs, just because they were just seemed to be handled in a way that wasn't all that clear or consistent. So Keo says there was a hurricane in mid-September 2018 in North Carolina. Okay, that may be when the defense attorneys went to see Chris Watts. Says folks, okay. If that's the case, then I don't know what the problem is in terms of the plea deal. If they went there early on, then they would have known about it. So I don't know, but we don't have clarity on that. Catherine Vincent, would you speak with NK if she wanted? Yes, I would. I think Nicole Kessinger should talk about her side of the story. I think she should just kind of make a statement. I think she's probably realized this isn't going to go away. And yeah, I mean, I think, what's worse than people taking your story and, kind of putting words in your mouth? Why not set the record straight? And, if I can put myself in that position, I was a bit afraid to go onto YouTube. I don't even mean like this, just talking, because I thought people would be put off by my voice and my accent and so on. And you just got to resign yourself to that. People, you can't make everybody happy. But it is important to make your voice heard. So, maybe she should. I think she should, but it's up to her. Vincina, hello. Tammy Wells says, I also believe that Shanann didn't relieve herself. No, I don't think that is true. I don't think it's relieved herself. I think it is excrement. There are a lot of people that seem to have that misconception. I don't know if too many people really responded to what I read earlier about losing our connection to nature, but I was talking about if we kill our mother, we kill ourselves. And look what Chris Watts did. He killed someone who was pregnant, the mother of his child, and effectively he destroyed his own life. Look at John Benet Ramsey. If we kill our daughter, we kill ourselves. Look at Gannon Stork, a stepmother allegedly killing her son. When you see this kind of thing happening in the world, it is also about killing your own mother, meaning the earth, right? This is a really long comment here. I don't know if I can actually bring it up. Maybe I should just concentrate on what you guys are asking. Annie Thomas, hi Nick, how do you think Shanann was transported to the truck? A wheelie bin, a bag. I think she was in a fitted sheet, and I think that she was sort of dragged to the cabin of the truck. I did actually do an analysis of the Trinastich video, and there's a point where you see him, he seems to be jumping almost, but there's a point where you can clearly see his moving in a strange way, and it seems like he is almost got his back to the road and is moving rapidly but kind of jerkily, and that looks like he could be dragging something behind him. That's the impression I got. I don't think he would want to try and carry her in his arms, because I think that would, if a neighbor's looking out their window, they would notice that. Whereas someone being dragged on the ground it could look like, a bag of compost or something like that. Living life in Hawaii, it's a good point. The garage floor from dragging should have left a scent for the dogs. That's a very good point. The flip side to that is it did rain on Monday night. There was a kind of a rainstorm. Also, there was the wind blew the the garbage containers over. Now, I'm not saying that would destroy cadaver scent. I'm just saying it would reduce it to some extent. So that's the one thing to point out. The other thing to point out is I don't know whether the dogs went on that garage slab. What I do know for a fact is Jeff Hibbert, when he came out of the house, you can go and check the video yourself if you're interested. When he comes out of the house, the dog is walking on his left, and then he walks down the driveway, but he's sort of walking down the periphery of the driveway. And then there's a moment where I think it's Officer Lyons, her body cam kind of gets interrupted, I think by the wall or something, but you lose sight for a second of Jeff Hibbert. And the next time you see him, which is 1 or 2 seconds later, the dog is far to his right, and then he turns left to go up the road. And the impression I got from that footage is that the dog was heading to that possible cadaver trace. And that would have been the best place to look. And another thing that was frustrating for me is he looks in the garage, and then they don't open the garage door, to look outside on the driveway. So make of that what you will. Michelle, so at the gravesite, the flowers, sorry, these questions are coming through so quickly. I'm kind of struggling not sure what happened to my last message. Elizabeth, do you want to type it again? Bonnie K. Cather, what's your opinion of the doll he threw into the trash? I could be wrong about this, but my impression is that was sent to Cece for her birthday by her grandmother. I don't know what you guys know about that, but for some reason I know that or suspect that. And then, so it could be that Shanann threw it in the trash. I'm not, there are a couple of scenarios. One could have been that Chris Watts, I don't know. I would theorize that Shanann may have thrown that doll into the trash. Deception indicated, nice profile. Not one YouTuber has been able to place NK there and has been over 2 years to prove the case. Agreed. Slow chat down to 15 seconds. Not sure I'm going to do that. Not sure how to do that. There was a soppy cup and blanket with a doll in the trash. Are you talking about the trash can in the garage? Because I know there was a Starbucks cup in the kitchen trash, sippy cup. Elizabeth Jones, I found it strange Ronnie said in one of the latest videos that there's no evidence left at the house as everyone apart from Shanann's brother has been in the house. I don't think that's strange. He's basically just saying that, going to court now, there is, how can I put it? There's no evidence left. The evidence has been documented, and it's, if you had to take the case to trial now, you wouldn't really uncover any new evidence necessarily. Liz Graham, a book in there too, the book she sent to him. Yeah, according to him, he threw that in the trash to make it seem like she was giving up on the marriage. So in his story, it seemed like he was saying that she threw the book away in the same way that she left her wedding ring behind, as if to say, this is how I feel about things. Susie C., the eternal flame, the house is contaminated from the start. That's true. I don't think Chris Watts realized what a weak prosecution case faced him, despite everything. I don't think he realized that at the time, and I think he was led to believe that things were there was a very strong case against him, including that the polygraph was this big thing hanging over his head that was conclusive, and it's not necessarily, but that was his undoing, you know. Living life in Hawaii, what happened to the furniture and clothes in the home? I think the furniture went to Shanann's family, and most of the clothes, I think some of the clothes went to Chris Watts's family. I would like to know why Nicole Kessinger did not click onto work that day, and why she pinged in Frederick. There's not nothing, how can I put it? There's not nothing in terms of that ping. If you go back through her phone records, there aren't kind of regular pings. So I don't know if you can make the argument that every day she went to work, she would have pinged that way anyway. It's possible that she was curious. She knew that Shanann had arrived home that night. Maybe she was led to believe, she was led to understand by Chris Watts that he was going to leave that day, and maybe she wanted to go and I don't know. You know, I have done that where I've had a ex-girlfriend, and I wouldn't say I've like gone out of my way to go to her home, but you know, there's a road where she doesn't live there anymore, but where driving past her home, you could sort of just quickly glance in the driveway and see if she's there. And I did that a couple of times, just curious, is she there? Is maybe someone visiting her? And, you know, it could be something like that. But what I don't understand with all the pinging, the ping theorists, is the crime didn't happen when the ping happened. You know, if the ping had happened at anywhere between 1:48 and 5:45, then you could have said maybe, but the ping happened at a different time, so I don't really get that. Anyway, you should go to Martin Dehan's channel. He does quite a good analysis on the ping. I'm not sure which video it is. I'm sure if you look around, you'll find it, or just ask him. And then he also talks about which tower it pinged from, and that's, I think, worth checking out. I'm not particularly interested in that just because to me it's not very relevant, but that would be a good thing for Nicole Kessinger just to bring up, you know, talk about. Inga Britta, I wonder why Chris Watts never went to a mental institution. Here in the Netherlands, they will. I don't think there's anything wrong with his mental health, to be honest. That's probably going to make some people upset that I don't think there's anything wrong, but I don't. So there was a question that it sort of was hidden away because of the content. Do I think Chris Watts is bisexual? I did in the beginning. I just kind of got that kind of vibe from him. I thought that in fact, I thought the reason for his introversion, his quietness was that he might be gay. I thought that could explain a lot. I do think that there's possibly more to the sexual narrative in this case than we know. I won't say more than that. Someone said that Shanann gave birth at the grave. I think what that means is when he buried her, by that time she had, it's called a coffin birth, because of the dynamics, that the baby was expelled. It's not as common as I actually thought, but that is what happened in this case. I actually need to use my other finger to do something. I wonder if I can just do that. Okay, so here's a question. I'm not sure if it's from Suzanne or Lisbeth, but she says, I'll never understand why he made the event more monstrous by claiming he killed his kids twice. And I'll never understand Ronnie's lack of reaction to his granddaughters being dead. That was quite strange, is when Ronnie found out he didn't seem to show much emotion. I don't think that necessarily means he didn't have any emotion, just that he didn't really show it. When she says, I will never understand why he made the event even more monstrous by claiming he killed his kids twice, I think what you've got to remember is that he was telling a minimizing story. And so by making it more monstrous, he was making it more genuine. That's how I understand it. I don't think he would ever make it, I don't think he would exaggerate it. I don't think he would do that. I think he would always minimize it, even when he was telling a version that's quite accurate. I think Snorky Low says, I think vain and narcissistic men often come across as bisexual. However, in most cases, it's not true. On the other hand, those forced to hide their sexuality often feel rage. I think there is something to that, where any person where your sexuality is being repressed, controlled, inhibited, it leads to frustration. And let me give you a good little example, is with a little dog. A little dog isn't evil or anything, and the things he wants to do aren't evil. But when you frustrate that aspect to him, a good-natured little doggy can become frustrated to the point that he can be a little bit unpleasant. He might growl, he might be upset, right? Scarlett, thank you very much. Wow, I like that little, looks like a green pear jumping there. Green pear with a bandana. Thanks very much. Do you guys agree? Yes, I guess so. Almost unbelievable news. So in shock. Why did Ronnie ask? Where is that now? Why did Ronnie? Sorry, I missed it. Cynthia, I don't think Chris understands empathy and emotions in the same way most people do. I think he expected people to feel more compassion for him. Cynthia, Shanann found him very empathetic and sympathetic when she was ill. Nicole found him kind, someone who listened to her. So I don't know if I agree with that. I do agree that he's not quite sure how to show emotions, how to show appropriate emotions to some extent. Sassy Cassie, okay, that's to somebody else. Okay, so here's a really good question. I think this one was actually from Lisbeth. She said, I've got a question for you. If you were Chris Watts in that situation he was in, what would you have done? It's kind of like a trick question, because I don't think I would have been in that situation. I don't think I would have, been in that situation. It's also like, what part? Do you mean where it's Sunday night and, is that the part? I mean, what part, what would you have done? Healthy Rutter, thanks a lot. That's quite a cool. Is that it almost looks like a rooster. Anyway, thanks for the thumbs up, the green, lime green thumbs up there. Mandy says Chris Watts is a sociopathic narcissist. Well, those who know me and know my channel know that I don't believe either of those are true. Michelle, I'm not sure what that's about. Tammy Coble, why did Ronnie ask, did they leave after? I'm not quite sure what that's about. Liz Graham, who wants to think of themselves in that situation? Okay, so let me just go back to that question. So if you were Chris Watts in that situation, what would you have done? So let's say you are in North Carolina. Well, I think there are a couple of ways to answer it. One is he didn't have to go to North Carolina. You know, he didn't have to go to this sort of reunion in North Carolina. Why did he have to go? He could have said to Shanann, I'm having second thoughts about everything. You know, and you know, the one possibility is that she may have rushed back. But so that's one possibility. Another thing is he could have told her from there, I've met somebody, I'm having an affair. He could have told her the truth. If he told her the truth, I think he could have still come out of it with Kessinger. I don't know. But I think I was in a situation, not even in a relationship, where I was living with someone and at some point they met somebody and then they didn't tell me they met someone. They just said something like, I don't really feel like there's place to put the stuff that I want where we're staying. And so in other words, this person didn't tell me the truth about why she was moving out, even though we weren't in a relationship, in order to prevent there being kind of, I don't know, fireworks or something, or unpleasantness. So people lie about that all the time. Q, thank you very much. 50 Kronen, is it? I think it's time to leave Nikki alone. I would like to know how she's coping. I don't know whether she's coping very well, just from what was said recently. And that to me is quite sad. If she has gone to Alaska, if she has had a child, I don't know if she's coping very well. On the other hand, if she's got another boyfriend, then maybe she's doing okay. Who knows? Someone said this is by far the best channel. Thanks, Elizabeth. Kristen Parker, I think multi-level marketing was the seed of the marriage's destruction. I think it was a big part of it. I agree with that. I think it was a really big part of it. Chrissy Lee, I just wanted to say thank you for being respectful. Pleasure. There are a lot of nasty people. Thank you, and I appreciate that. Liz Graham. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Wow, is it afternoon? Yeah, I guess it is. Must be about 3:10 in the States, in certain parts of the States. Oh, it's Krona. I know my top coat was contradictory. I don't believe she has had a baby. I think it's possible. Maybe that is why she's been so quiet as well. She's not that free to do what she wants, and maybe that is what has taken up her time. But it is something to consider if she has had a baby. Imagine loving someone, you fall pregnant, and then it turns out that that person's a triple murderer. I mean, aren't you going to be very conflicted in so many ways? I think it's easy to say, if you were Chris Watts, what would you have done? Well, just be honest. But I don't know if that is addressing it. That's simply putting yourself in his place. TH £1.99. Thank you very much. The house is way too big for them. Don't buy Mercedes if you don't have the garage to put it in. Very true. Denise, this is a question that I've just, what do you call it, assembled previously. She said, if they had recently, if they recently had filed bankruptcy before moving to Colorado, how on earth did they qualify for a mortgage on a 5-bedroom house? So first of all, I think they filed for bankruptcy in Colorado, and I think it was Shanann's credit that was kind of impaired or curtailed or whatever. They qualified. Well, the house ended up being in Chris Watts's name. There's more to that than that, like, you know, but anyway, I'm not going to go into that right now. Bonnie May says, what do you think of Ronnie discussing the paternity of Shanann's baby? I don't really know what to say about that. I think it's a bit of a wild goose chase, like a false flag. I think that was actually dealt with quite a long time ago. I think it's part of maybe a defense case where you just say, Chris Watts wasn't so bad, he wasn't the only one cheating. That's like part of the defense case. I think he was the only one cheating. I think the baby's paternity was definitely Chris Watts'. I think it was brought up on Dr. Phil. Do you remember that? Where it was brought up on Dr. Phil that they did test it and they found that it was Chris Watts' child. And I remember just thinking, wow, I didn't know that that was even a question. I found it a bit silly, but, you know. Someone said, after reading your book, I feel I'm getting closure. Well, that's good to hear. Which book is that? Do you think NK is preg? That's why he killed Shanann Watts? No, I don't think so. So this is something I did mean to address in this live. I meant to address this situation. I hope I'm going to keep my train of thought. Can you imagine a situation where Nicole Kessinger is aware that Shanann is pregnant, right? So she knows that Chris's wife is pregnant, right? She knows this. But she's under the impression, she's been told a story, a yarn, that it's not Chris's baby. Now, whoever you are, you might say this or that or whatever. But put yourself in Nicole's position. Okay, so Stephanie, I saw that comment that you made. Maybe you guys should just Google something about Dr. Phil, Chris Watts' paternity, or Nico, whatever. But I do remember that being on Dr. Phil. Anyway, so let me now try and just get back to my train of thought. So if Nicole Kessinger understood that Shanann is pregnant, but it's from another man, then if Shanann and Chris Watts were sort of going to be together, whenever they were together, she would be kind of going, I wonder if that is true. And then suddenly things could go from a certain amount of pressure and tension to like white hot anger and uncertainty, like what is actually going on here? Do you get what I'm saying? In other words, if you knew that she was pregnant but you thought it was from someone else, then you might feel like, okay, I feel reassured. But that reassurance could go nuclear the moment that it seemed like, well, so if it is someone else's child, why are you still together? Why aren't you divorced? What the hell is going on? So can you see how that can create really, really hectic stress? Can you see that? I just think it's worth considering. Eternal Flame says, you look tired. I am tired. I didn't sleep very well last night. Partially because of this Ronnie thing that came out. I'd probably had 4 hours sleep by the time it came out, and I just felt like I had to pay attention to it. And so that's just part of the true crime thing. Hillary Jane, Jackie, she said, I give you permission to enter my daughter's home. Living life in Hawaii, you don't look tired. Okay, well. What the heck says, do you dream about this case? Actually, no. There are a couple of cases that I have dreamt about a little bit. Oh, the Jodi Arias book. Okay, that's pretty cool. Sorry, I saw something about the first shot theory and then it disappeared. Maggie G, thanks a lot. Is that from Canada, I take it? Do you believe they are still investigating the case stealthily, including NK and her possible involvement? No, I don't think so. I don't think they are. I do think if you say, do you believe they are still investigating the case, I would say people on the Chris Watts side of the equation probably are thinking about it, investigating it. There may be, I think there are a lot of people who are paying attention to what is happening on YouTube and what people are speculating about. I'm not saying they watch every single video, but I do think that they notice things. I think they would have watched the Netflix documentary. I think they are aware of the kind of milestones. Someone like Detective Bormov, I'm not sure if he's working now, but he might see something and he might call someone up and talk about something. I don't know. I do think there's a certain amount of noise going on in the background, but I don't know if that equates to a investigation. Bear in mind they've got a lot of other cases to deal with, and also this case is actually dealt with. And this is also another thing I wanted to address in this live is you can't say Chris Watts is appealing, right? Let me just be really clear about this. You can't say Chris Watts is appealing. You can say he is investigating or attempting or doing the efforts and activities necessary to apply, right? You can only say that he's appealing once he fills in that documentation and somebody approves it. The moment that documentation is filled in and is, somebody considers it, and then he meets the legal standard. As soon as that happens and they say, okay, you do have a case, then he is appealing. Do you understand? That's quite a good point. He's most unappealing. But the point is, you can only say he's appealing once that is, what's the word? It is approved. And it's not approved yet. So until it's approved, nothing is happening. And it's quite a long shot that it is going to be approved. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just think he's going to need really good legal counsel. And I don't know where he's going to get the money for that. That's all. Christopher Johnson, look at me. Will this continue indefinitely? Okay, good one. Chrissy Lee, do you think you will ever have your books on audio other than having a Kindle? Chrissy, there are a lot of books on audio, there are a lot. You access the audio books on Patreon. There are 12 or 13 books available as audiobooks on Patreon. Grace C, do you think Chris Watts is incapable of remorse? I wouldn't say he's incapable of remorse. I think you've got to understand that when you premeditate a murder, sounds like I'm talking from experience here. When a criminal premeditates a murder, they're resigning themselves to what they're doing. So in that resignation, there's kind of standoffishness, and that is when he's making the emotional decision. He's preparing his heart and preparing his head for what he's going to do, and then when he does it, it's not a question that there's not remorse. It's just a question that he's resigned himself to that outcome. And if anything, it's not remorse, it's that he's not happy that he didn't succeed because he wanted a particular outcome. He may feel regret that he did it to begin with because his life is now much worse than it was. But that, I think you can agree, is a little bit different. Eternal flame. A lot of things were false about Shanann Watts, including her nails. Okay. Stacey, great group on Patreon. True. And Marie, I believe if he was truly contrite, he would willingly and without question. Didn't see the rest. Nick, would you like to interview? Also missed that one. Okay. Chris Watts can study law all he desires, but he'll never get out of prison to practice. Okay. Okay, well, guys, we've been at this for 81 minutes. I don't know, are there any more questions? Maybe we should just call it a day. I don't tend to really go much further than 90 minutes. Mystery Baker, I don't know if you remember this question. You wrote, Nick, I would like you to look at why, if he was running late, did he not just place all three in the shallow grave rather than placing Shanann in the ground and then the two children in not one, but two different tanks? So if he couldn't have fitted the children in the tanks, I think he would absolutely have buried all three in the shallow grave. I just think that he was trying to make them disappear permanently. He was desperate to make them vanish. And that was the word he used during a sermon on the porch. He wanted them to have vanished. And I don't know what happened to them. I don't know where they went. They just vanished. And, Shanann was upset, and so she left with the kids and vanished. And now it's not my problem. That was kind of what he wanted to do. It does get a bit complicated because it does sound like they were going to check the tanks a week later or something like that. I don't know whether they would have necessarily found anything. Maybe he was hoping that, and I apologize for saying this, but I think he was counting on the tissues dissolving. And the question is, how long would it have taken? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I do think given enough time that would have happened. When they check the tanks, I don't think it means that they kind of jump in and swim around in them. I think that they take like a reading. I don't know if it's much more than that. Carla Holland, thank you, and rest well from Holland. I hope you guys also rest well there. Sincere, I think Chris Watts was happy when the investigators said, sorry, I just missed that. Sorry, these questions are coming so quickly. So if he couldn't have put the children in those tanks, I think he would have put them in the ground. It wouldn't have taken him that long. I do think that there was a point of putting them in separate tanks, is that the decomposition would have been quicker. I also think, how can I put it? Something like the length of their hair could have gotten into like a grill. So it is possible that he cut their hair before he put them in. Someone said, why not just throw the black plastic bags into the oil tanks as well? Well, because that could have also blocked like a grill. You must remember there are outlets where gas goes out and all that kind of thing. And these can get blocked. But I've got to say I'm not an expert about it. Yeah. Then Sarah, I don't know if I've answered your question to satisfaction there, but here's another one. Sarah McAlvaney. If he killed the children hours before, which I think he did, do you think rigor would have created issues in getting the children through such a small space? No. You can actually Google rigor mortis, and the smaller a person's body, the less rigor occurs, because that's just how it works. There's just not enough chemicals to create that. And it's not like rigor is like a stick that when you're in a position you can't move a body. With enough manipulation you can still move a person's body. And it happens in morgues all the time. People come in there with rigor mortis and they are then kind of manipulated into the proper position. It's not like, it's not something that can't change. A lot of people talk about that, and I don't really understand why it's such a big deal to them. Do you think he drugged them? Yes, I do. Nothing was found in the autopsy. That's true, but they were in oil tanks for 4 days, and it's corrosive oil. Also, something like oxycodone, opiates have a very short half-life. So even someone that wasn't in an oil tank, something like an opiate will disappear from the system very quickly because it's got such a short half-life. So you need to be aware of the not efficacy, the pharmacodynamics of these substances. Veronica Seddon, something if you have a foo. Maybe he pulled Shanann by her hair. Eternal Flame, ketamine has a very short time. He could also have used ethanol. And bear in mind, he's an oil worker. He must have been aware of the dangers of ethanol. So he may have used something like that. Bear in mind, I've actually mentioned this. Some people think it's nothing to kind of big deal. But the fact is that he carried the gas can out of the house into the truck that night, which means the gas can wasn't in the truck. Now, why wasn't the gas can in the truck? Now, it's possible he used what was in the gas can as part of committing the crime. And what is in the gas can? Well, possibly gasoline, possibly ethanol, possibly some chemical substance that assisted him in executing these crimes. Thanks, Stephanie. Kelly Dawn, talking to Mike about mornings in Colorado. Chloroform, I believe, was used in the Casey Anthony case, and that's also got it's very difficult to trace chloroform afterwards because it evaporates. Okay, so we had 88 minutes. I think we almost done. Any other questions? So one thing to bear in mind is, in a scenario of this whole thing of that Chris Watts killed them twice, in a scenario where he drugs them and then they come back to life, that is very, very conceivable. In other words, he tries to kill them, or he just sedates them because he wants to talk to Nicole Kessinger, but he doesn't use enough drugs or whatever, or substance, and then they do come back to life at a time that he didn't expect. So that does make sense in terms of that. Bear in mind, he apparently made the same miscalculation trying to bring about a miscarriage. So he'd under-drugged Shanann at least twice. And can you imagine going to the ultrasound and then finding out, wow, the baby's alive and well, despite everything that he's done? Anyway, that's something else. August, bye-bye. Thanks for joining us. Please show Timmy at the end. Timmy is down there. Can you see him? Timmy. See, if I pick him up, I've got to put this down, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep it. Timmy, come. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep. Timmy, come. Come, boy. How can I hold this up? Come. Okay, I'm just going to do this. Come. Oh. How's that? So can you see Timmy? There he is. Timmy. I could usually get him to sing really, really quickly, but yeah, I think he's also a little bit tired. And here's his ball. I think he's looking for that. Yeah. Come here. Where's the ball? Where's the ball? Whoa. Sorry, he's slipping. Anyway, so guys, thanks for joining me. Thank you to everyone for your contributions. I really appreciate it. I'll see you again maybe about a month from now, hopefully with less glitches again, but probably not. Good to contact. Good to get in touch with you guys again, and bear in mind that Post-Truth is coming out tomorrow on Patreon on the $10 tier. Also bear in mind that it's my 100th book, and so I'm quite excited about that. Hopefully it's one of the best books, but I think that remains to be seen. Anyway, so if you're interested in that, check it out. Stephanie, good to see those exclamation marks there. So Post-Truth starts tomorrow on Patreon. It'll be coming out on Amazon a little bit after that. So check it out there. Thanks again, guys, and I'll see you guys next time. Ciao.